My name's Kim. Today is April 1st. It is, in fact, I can't check the time now. It is like 5:05. I filmed this immediately after finishing work because April 1st is the release of the new fantasy bingo board. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a reaction and then also let you know in a few days once I've had a chance to look over the board and see what I plan to read for the next year. If you don't know what fantasy bingo is, it's a challenge on the Reddit fantasy, on the subreddit fantasy, where there are 25 prompts that you have to complete. You get to choose what you pick as long as it's speculative, and they have a normal mode and also a hard mode as well. Last year I did a BIPOC authors bingo card. I'm going to be doing the same going forward, and that's the speed run because I want to look. It was posted about an hour ago because I checked, and ever since I've been sitting there doing my mandatory training like, I need to check what's on the bingo board. I don't know what's going to be on there aside from the kind of usual author of colour sort of stuff. I have a suspicion that there'll be paladins and also something like something published in the 80s because of the kind of hint boards that have been flying around, but I don't know. So without further ado, my screen recording is set up and I've all moved through. You get to enjoy my little subreddits that I'm a part of at the side if you're nosy. So I'm going to try and the board comes first, so maybe shall I have a quick glance at the board and then just read it, or skip the board and go straight to the prompts? It's green this year. Oh my god, it's matching my shirt. I'm going to skip it and go straight to the prompts. Oh, that reveals everything. Okay, I will just have to do it like this. Okay, Knights and Paladins, number 1. One of the protagonists, a knight or a paladin. Okay, I have an idea already what I was going to pick for this because Paladin I knew was going to be a hard one, so I thought, oh, I don't know, maybe there'll be like a knight figure, so I already know what I'm going to pick for this, but you'll have to see later in the week. Second one, Hidden Gem, a book under 1,000 ratings on Goodreads. New releases and arcs from popular authors don't count. Follow the Spirit of the Square. Hard mode published 5 or more years ago. Okay, published in the 80s. Read a book that was published anytime between 1980 and 1989. Written by an author of colour. Oh, okay. Well, you'll see who I've picked for that one because I've hit hard mode on that one big time. So that was the only one I kind of pre-thought about because I was like, I don't know anyone who's published anything in the 80s. I do. So, high fashion. Read a book where clothing/fashion or fibre arts are important to the plot. This can be a crafty main character or a setting where fashion is explored. Okay, interesting one. I'll have to have a think about that. Down with the system. Read a book in which a main plot revolves around disrupting a system. Hard mode, not a governmental system. And then second row, Impossible Places. Read a book set in a location that would break a physicist. The geometry, non-Euclidean. The volume, bigger on the inside. The directions, merely a suggestion. Oh, I think I've got an idea for this one as well, actually. At least 50% of the book takes place within this impossible place for hard mode. Okay, that's not actually as hard as I thought. I've got a book that just came to mind. 7, a book in parts. Read a book that's separated into large sections within the main text. This can include things like acts, parts, days, years, and so on. Has to be more than just chapter breaks. Hard mode, 4 or more parts. 6, Gods and Pantheons. Read a book featuring divine beings. Hard mode, multiple pantheons. Okay. 9, last in a series. Read the final entry in a series. Hard mode. The series is 4 or more books long. Okay. That gives me some motivation to finish my book series. 10 is a usual book club or read along, a book that's an official group read on fantasy or was previously. You have to participate throughout the year for hard mode in the discussions if you pick that one. I managed to do that last year with A Spear Cut Through Water, so that one I'm kind of going to hold on and wait and see what books pop up for that one. 3rd, parent protagonist. Read a book where the main character has a child to care for. The child does not have to be biologically related to the main character. Hard mode, the child is also a major character in the story. Epistolary. The book must prominently feature any of the following: diary or journal entries, letters, messages, newspaper clippings, transcripts, etc. Hard mode, the book's entirely told in epistolary. That one's quite interesting because Emily Wilde, Letter from the Luminous Deep, there are definitely some that you can see where that's probably, because they've been published in the past few years, that one's gotten a lot of interest. So it'll be interesting to find that one to fit in a BIPOC author one. Published in 2025, a book published in 2025. Hard mode is also a debut, no problem. And then also author of colour. These 3 are all ones that we see regularly anyway. Hard mode, written by a person of colour. So, author of colour, hard mode, a horror novel. Easy peasy. Got that one in the bag. 15, small press or self-published. Read a book published by a small press or self-published. Hard mode, book has under 100 ratings on Goodreads or written by a marginalised author. I think they changed that this year. Before it was if they'd done AMA with the subreddit, which I found that one quite difficult last year. I think that one probably continues to be quite difficult, but we'll see about that one. Oh, 16, biopunk. Read a book that focuses on biotechnology and its consequences. No electricity-based technology. Okay, that was interesting. Elves and or dwarves. Read a book that features the classic fantasy archetype of elves and or dwarves. They don't have to fit the classic tropes, but must be named as either elves or dwarves to be easily identified as such. Hard mode, the main character is an elf or dwarf. 18, LGBTQIA protagonist. Read a main book where a character fits under that umbrella. Hard mode, it must be on at least an additional axis, so a person of colour, disabled, a member of an ethnic, religious or cultural minority in the story. Okay. Then traditional 5 SFF short stories. Hard mode, read an anthology. I tend to hit hard mode for that one and try and just knock out and read anthologies for that one anyway. Stranger in a Strange Land. Read a book that deals with being a foreigner in a new culture. This character or characters, if there's a group, must be either visiting or moving in as a minority. Hard mode, the character is an immigrant or a refugee. I've just read a book that could fit for that for last year's bingo. Interesting. Final rare, recycle a bingo square. Oh, use a square from previous year, 2015 to 2024, as long as it does not repeat on the current card. Hard mode, no. Not very clever of us, but do the hard mode for the original square. Apologies, there are no hard mode for bingo challenges before 2018, but that still leaves 7 years of challenges and hard modes to choose from. Okay, interesting. Cozy SFF. Okay, this one was also kind of thrown around, kind of might have seen coming. And I think I also have an idea about what to potentially read for this one. It's up to you for what your preference is that you find comforting, but the genre typically features relatable characters, low stakes, minimal conflict, and a happy ending. Hard mode, the author is new to you. 23, generic title. Read a book that has one or more of the following words in the title: blood, bone, broken core, dark shadow, song, sword, or throne. Hard mode, the title includes more than one listed, or at least one word and a colour, number, or animal, real or mythical. 24. Oh, I've just seen the last one. Spoiled myself. 24. Not a book. Do something besides reading a book. Watch a TV show, play a game, learn how to summon a demon. Okay, maybe not the last one. Spend time with fantasy, science fiction, or horror in another format. Movies, video games, TTRPGs, board games, act all count. There's no rule about how many episodes of a show will count or whether you have not or not. I don't know why I found that so hard, because there's 2 sentences there. You have to finish a game. New is the key word here. We don't want you to play a new save on your game you've played before or watch a new episode of a show you enjoy. You can do a whole new TTRPG or new campaign in a system that you've played before, but not a new session in the game. Hard mode, write a review and post it to Fantasy. Oh, you know what? This is an excuse for me to crack open the solo TTRPGs that I'm looking at right now that I bought last year at Dragonmeet that I haven't opened yet. So actually, that is a really interesting one. I'm quite excited about that. That's really unique. 25, pirates. Read a book where the characters engage in piracy. Hard mode, not a seafaring pirate. I did have a hint about that one. It was also going to be on there. I completely forgot about that. And I'm sure at the time something crossed my mind about a book that I could read for it, but I've completely forgotten. Anyway, that is the bingo board. So, okay, interesting. I've got a few ideas immediately that already popped in my head. Some of them author of colour, published in 2025, small indie press, short stories, even LGBT protagonist, really. I can knock off pretty quickly, straightforward. Knights and Paladins, I think I've got one. Published in 80s, I've got one. Some of the other ones, I'm going to have to look at the reviews, which are, the recommendations, which I'll be doing right this second, because I need to get involved and see what people are posting. Yeah, interesting. Okay, I'll be back in a few days with, I don't know, a bingo board, I guess. Hello, so I'm back and I kind of have made a list. I obviously spent the rest of April 1st looking at my books and what I owned to try and come up with a bit of a plan. I don't know about anyone else if you participate in the bingo yourself, but I feel like at least having like a little bit of a plan about what you want to read is just a bit easier to manage it. I think the first year I kind of just I attempted to plan, and then it didn't really matter because I ended up buying so many books anyway. And then last year I went in with a pretty solid plan, and I think I read most of what I originally planned to read. This year is kind of 50-50 because there's quite a few squares where obviously there are things that come out throughout the year that might fit them, so I've not planned for a full bingo board, but the ones that are a little bit harder and that I feel like could do with a little bit maybe of forethought, I've tried to come up with an idea about what I want to read. So I thought I'd go through them and let you know about what potentially I will be reading for the bingo. I am a mood reader, so whether I actually finish any of the books I put on here will be a surprise. There are a few I definitely want to get to, so I know I'll read at least a few, but realistically there's a bunch that are probably going to get changed off because, as I said, I'm a mood reader. I cannot stick to a plan. So we'll work our way through and go through what I'm thinking about reading. So the first one is Knights and Paladins, and for this one I want to read Tasha Sori's The Isle in the Silver Sea. This is a sapphic fantasy knight and witch tale that was announced not too long back. I have read The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Sori, and so I liked her writing style, and I had my eyes on this kind of when it came out. And my thought when I saw, or at least I thought, that Paladins might be in this was that maybe this could be an option for me to read, because I knew that there was a knight, like the cover's just been released, and so maybe in like the normal mode maybe it would fit, you know, what the prompt was. And so thankfully it was Knights and Paladins because I think that broadens it a little bit, because especially if, as I said, I'm trying to do a BIPOC author's card, I think it's a little bit harder, which you will see later on. There's one that I have not managed to find something for yet, or at least kind of, but we'll get to that. So this follows a knight and a witch who are fated to fall in love with each other over and over again. And then for Hidden Gem, there is a recommendations thread that gets put up every year so people can contribute their recommendations to the different squares. And the recommendation that popped up is The Sign of the Dragon by Mary Sue Lee. And this is kind of, I think, something that's been recommended quite a few times because I already have it on my Kindle, because I had seen it recommended quite a few times before. And it is this literal like 600-page epic, all told in poetry. I have actually started it because I was thinking about reading it for last year's bingo for the Indies published square. And so from what I've glimpsed from the first little bit that I've read, there is a prince whose older brothers have all been killed, and so he ends up becoming the king, and he never anticipated being the king. And he is not the type of person who typically would become the king. He's quite soft-hearted, and he now has to navigate this entire life he wasn't expecting to. As I said, it's all told in poetry, and from what I read, it is quite easy to get through. It's obviously just it's quite long. It's like 300 poems or something like that, so it is quite a dense story to get through. So I think I do need to make more of an effort to read it, because number one, it is something that has caught my eye and that I would like to read, but also because I think I'll just probably chip away at it over time, and that's a little bit easier to consume it that way. Then for published in the 80s, this was one I already kind of knew what I was going to read, because I was sat there thinking, oh my god, who has published something in the 80s? Like, I have no idea. Only to think, Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler has published a work in the 80s, and so there's a few books of hers. I haven't decided yet which one I'm going to read, but I have Wild Seed, which follows a shapeshifting entity named Doro who meets another shapeshifter named Anyamwu. And so it is this kind of following these immortal people throughout time, as far as I know. And then there's also Dawn as well, which follows a woman who has been abducted by aliens essentially, after they have taken over the earth. And so it's kind of like her life as they return to Earth, with this alien species who is going to merge with her. I don't know which one I want to read yet. Between the two of them, they both sound like very drastic different things, and to be honest, I'll probably pick up both of them, because there's no harm in reading multiple books, and then at least I can take more Octavia Butler off of my want to reads as well. Then for high fashion, this is one where I didn't really know what I was going to pick at all, because it is a very unique square, which I'm glad for. I really like the concept of it, and looking through the recommendations, there are definitely a lot of books that do potentially fit it, but again, we're looking for something that would fit for a BIPOC author, and preferably not YA, because I know Tahira Murphy's series, This Woven Kingdom, I think is supposed to fit. I decided to instead go for The Conductors by Nicole Glover. This follows a lady named Hetty, who is a seamstress by day and a conductor on the Underground Railway by night, and she is a magic user, and her and her husband are working together to solve this mystery that is going on in the place that they live. I had actually seen the cover for that one a few times before. It had popped up kind of on, you know, different Goodreads recommendations list, but I'd never really looked into it much further than that, so I'm excited to give that one a go as well. Then with Down with the System, this is one where I think pretty much anything could probably fit. There's a lot of different books. Blood Over Brighthaven that I read for last year's bingo could fit, but obviously I've already read that. So looking at books that maybe I'd heard of or that I might be interested in reading, I decided to pick up The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson, and this is a sci-fi book which follows a character who travels between multiverses, and you cannot go to a world where your counterpart is alive in this other world, and that ends up happening and things kind of go a bit crazy. Really reminds me of Mickey 7 / Mickey 17. I went to cinema to watch that on my birthday, and so I'm someone, sci-fi is kind of a weird one for me because I do enjoy the genre, but I find that I have like really weird niches where stuff like time travel and kind of multiverse stuff makes me anxious, but I need to get over myself. I need to kind of like move past that a little bit because there are obviously books that are super interesting, that have interesting concepts that I think about reading potentially, and I've heard pretty much nothing but good things about this series, so I'm just going to bite the bullet and move past my anxieties and read the book. Then for Impossible Places, I am picking up Escaping Exodus by Nicky Drayden. This follows a world in which people live inside these giant space beasts, and our main character ends up unearthing something as she is supposed to be training to be leader of her clan, but they uncover something that reveals the truth about what exactly is going on in these off-world colonies. I picked this up last year. I think the cover is really pretty. But I hadn't got around to reading it yet or deciding when I was going to pick it up. For A Book in Parts, I am going to pick up The Gilda Stories by Joel Gomez. This follows a woman named Gilda who escapes slavery and ends up becoming a vampire, and it follows her throughout time as she moves and lives in all these different eras. This one is on my 25 in 2025. I also picked this up last year, and I did kind of attempt to start reading. I didn't really get far, and so I saw that this one was broken up into parts. It's split into different years in time that she lives in, and so this one would be a really good one to pick up for that square. For Gods and Pantheons, I'm thinking about picking up Shigidi and the Brass Head of Obalufon by Wole Talabi. This is a Nigerian inspired story where we follow Shigidi, who's a god who is just kind of getting by, answering prayers from people who still worship him. He meets someone and they kind of try and break free of these boundaries, but the other gods have plans for him. I have this one on my Kindle. I picked this up a couple of months ago. I think I got it on one of the Kindle deals, so I think it would be great to get through that and knock another book off my TBR. Then we have a couple of prompts that I'm not currently planning to put a book in for, there's a few more as we'll go down, so I'll kind of list them as we go. Last in the series and book club or read along book, I haven't put down a book for, just because I think that I can kind of find those as I go throughout the year. I almost am in that place where I'm like, I don't actually know what series I'm currently in the middle of. I know that I have one book that could fit that, which is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. I read the first two books in the series a couple of years ago, and I never ended up getting to the third book because I really enjoyed the first book. I wasn't so keen on the second book, and so I put it off, but I found it for like £3 in like a Waterstones clearance sale, and I thought I'm just going to pick it up, and then I still haven't got to it, so it's been quite a long time, and although I remember the first book pretty well, I don't, or at least I feel like I could jump in based on that. I don't remember so much what happened in the second book, and I think I'm a bit nervous to pick up the third book. So that one could fit, and it would then tick off that series, and I wouldn't have to just leave it hanging on 2 out of 3 books. But apart from that, I honestly am like, what books am I in the middle of a series for? At least what books am I in the middle of the series for that have the third book or final book released? So I'm gonna come back to that one and see what it is that I have basically on my kind of want to read list. And then for book club or read along book, I did this last year as well. I kind of just waited out the year to see if there were any ones that they were reading on the subreddit that interested me. I'm going to do that again just because there'll be books inevitably that I haven't heard of that pop up. The West Passage was one that they read on there. I also had read at the same time, pretty much unintentionally, The Spear Cuts Through Water, which is what I used for last year's bingo. So on those ones I'm going to hold out for now. For parents, I'm thinking about about reading Recipes for an Unexpected Afterlife by Destin J. Munden. This is an author who has written an orc book, which I nearly read for last year's bingo, and this is following another orc who is retired and has opened a restaurant. He ends up taking in this young orphan girl named Astra, and there is a big kind of mystery about her ancestry, and so he is there to protect her and build a life together with her and with his restaurant. This one feels like it's a cozy fantasy that could be really nice. It's due to come out in October, so I'm going to keep my eye out for that, because I think that one would be a good read. For epistolary, I am thinking about reading Stephen Graham Josie's The Buffalo Hunter. This one was in the recommendation thread. I don't have my copy yet, even though it has technically released, I think, in the US, because I think the UK release date got pushed back. I did pre-order it. It's meant to come out at the end of April, so as far as I'm aware, it does fit for this prompt, as it is told in diary extracts. It follows the story of a Lutheran priest who is transcribing the life of this vampire who is hunting a Blackfeet reservation. Then we have published in 2025. This one I'm going to leave open because there will no doubt be loads of books published this year that I'm interested in reading for the bingo, so I'm leaving that open for now. For author of colour, the hard mode for this one is to read a horror book specifically. I would have left this one open, and I probably will inevitably end up changing what I read for this one, but one book that came to mind straight away was Yuzo Ono's Futility, which is meant to come out this year. This is a story in which there is a character named Chia who owns a restaurant in Nigeria who is getting up to strange stuff with her cooking, and then there's also this British woman named Claire who is living in Nigeria as well with a young Nigerian boyfriend, but her life is kind of spiraling because she's kind of consumed by jealousy. Both these women are offered revenge by this trickster spirit, and things kind of spiral kind of crazily out of control. I did just think I put this one because it was a new release, but I do actually own Where the Dead Brides Gala by the same author, which would also fit, so I don't know why I didn't just put that one. But it was because I was thinking about new releases, so, and I was going through my Goodreads like TBR as I was looking, so that's probably why. Then we also have small press / self-published. I haven't put one for this one either, just because again things come out throughout the year, and so I'm just gonna keep up with new releases. The subreddit for fantasy is pretty good with letting you know about indie releases. People post on there, and they do have stuff about small presses, like their awards and stuff like that, so I'm just going to keep checking back and see if I see anything on there that I'm interested in. Then we have Biopunk, and I was thinking about reading In the Watchful City by S. Chioli Liu. Very gratefully they have a pronunciation guide about how to say their name on their website. I have this one on my Kindle. It's a science fiction novel that follows our character named Anima, who uses this process called the Gleaming to watch over all the inhabitants in the city of Aura. This mysterious person enters and Anima starts to unravel things that are going on in the city. I did actually start this one for the Transcribes Readathon, but I didn't end up picking it up because I was flicking between what I wanted to read. So I got literally probably a couple of pages in, I think maybe the first kind of like chapter-esque section, and so I'm going to pick this one up this year. Then we have Elves and Dwarves, and this is the one that I do not have anything for at the moment because it is really hard to find anyone that has written about elves and dwarves and is a person of colour. The only books that I can think of are Sarah L. Arifi's Feybound series, which I read the first book of last year and I didn't really enjoy it that much. Like, the book was probably a 2.5 for me, and so the sequel is out, Cursebound, but I don't want to hate read the rest of the series, but it's literally the only book that I can think of that will fit this prompt at all, so I'm holding out for now in the hopes that someone will publish something. I think I felt quite similarly about this to the Orcs, Goblins and Troll Square, because it is a kind of like area that seems to be avoided by people of colour. Understandably, it kind of fits in the kind of white Western Tolkien-esque landscape of fantasy, and so a lot of people who are writing fantasy who are people of colour aren't necessarily going into that world, and so are not using like orcs or trolls or whatever. And so there is a couple like Destin J. Munden and Quell Hudson who wrote the book that I did read, but it's the same with Elves and Dwarves, and there doesn't seem to be really anything. Elves is the one that maybe I'll find a little bit more for, I think. Dwarves, it seems practically non-existent, so unless someone wants to self-publish something now, maybe I should self-publish something. I don't know if that's cheating. It's really hard to find something for this square, so I'm coming back to this one. I don't know what I'm going to read. I don't want to read Cursebound, but if I have to, then I will. Then we have LGBTQIA protagonists, and also 5 short stories / hardbound is an anthology. I haven't put anything down for these two yet either, just because I know that I'll find something to fill these. LGBTQIA protagonists will be a lot easier to find something. Inevitably I will fill that pretty quickly. basically. For short stories, it's just because there are obviously a bunch of anthologies, and there tends to be anthologies written by people of colour. There's a couple by Indigenous authors that I was thinking about potentially reading, that I'd seen kind of crop up, but I need to go and just have a look and see whether they're speculative. So this one I thought I'd just come back to at a late point as well. For Stranger in a Strange Land, I was thinking about reading I Got Abducted by Aliens and Now I'm Trapped in a Rom-Com by Kimberly Lemming. Number one, because it's also on my 25 and 2025, but also because I don't think that there is anything stranger than being abducted by aliens and ending up in a rom-com. And so it would be quite funny if I do read this one and the Octavia Butler one that also involves being abducted by aliens, kind of the parallels between these two stories, 40 or however many years later. This one is quite self-explanatory. It's in the title what goes into this book, but it follows a character named Dorothy who is getting her PhD and then ends up getting abducted by aliens, and it spirals from there. And I think it'll be a nice kind of fun read to break up some of the more thicker, chunky, quite high fantasy books that I am going to be reading on here. For the Recycle a Bingo Square, I haven't decided on yet what bingo square I'm going to recycle, but I have a list of a few that I was thinking about maybe reading. So the first one is Weird Ecology, which was on the 2022 bingo board. So this was the year before I started bingo, but I kind of caught the tail end of it. And Weird Ecology is like a niche that I really enjoy. I literally, the door went when I was filming a clip for this, and A Drop of Corruption turned up, which is a weird ecology. And I really just kind of like those strange things in the environment that go on, stuff like the Ninth Reign, all those kind of books I really enjoy. So part of me is wanting to pick up that one, and I did post about it on Reddit, and it looks like that maybe Rosewater by Tay Thompson might fit that, so I'm potentially going to go for that one. But otherwise, ones that I looked at and kind of thought maybe would be interesting are Revenge Seeking Character from 2021, The Witch's Square from 2021, novels featuring vampires from 2019. That one could also fit the Buffalo Hunter. A novel translated from its original language in 2020. I feel like this one will be pretty good because although I try and read a little bit of translated fiction, I don't tend to read a lot of it, and so it would be nice to read something else that's translated. A setting featuring snow, ice or cold, that was 2020 square, and also climate fiction, which was also 2020. Those are all kind of squares that would fit with the kind of vibe of stuff that I tend to read anyway, and so I'm not too certain about which one I'm going to pick yet. So I kind of just put down a few, and if I do read stuff that fits that, I'll make a note and get to filling off that square as well. For cozy SFF, I was thinking about reading The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. This came out last year and follows Tao, who's an immigrant fortune teller travelling between villages, and then ends up getting recruited by an ex-mercenary to find a lost child. For generic title, I am going to read The Dance of Shadows by Rogbert Payne. This one I picked up last year as well. It follows a main character named Rumi, who is living in poverty with his family and tries to make some money by performing, and one night ends up getting attacked by this mysterious priest of vultures, which ends up sending things kind of spiraling out of control, and he ends up becoming this shadow wielder, which gives him mysterious powers. I really love the cover for this one. I love the gold that reflects. The cover is what drew me to it in the first place. I did see on the recommendations thread that apparently this could have been used for Bard, which would have saved me a whole lot of trouble last year when I was trying to figure out what could be done for that square. So this one's pretty chunky fantasy, but it'd be nice to get another chunky fantasy off my shelves and read, and so I'm looking forward to getting to this one. For the Not a Book square, I obviously have not picked something for this because it's not a book. My heart is set on playing one of my solo TTRPGs, but I want to go in the theme of the square and find something that is created by someone who is a person of colour. So I need to go through and have a proper look at everything that I have because I don't think I have something at the moment that is solely created by a person of colour. So I'm going to check out itch.io. I'm going to have a look at the ones that I do own to see if there is anything, and so that is a potential one for me. It would obviously be a lot easier to watch a film or listen to a podcast series, but I think that a solo TTRPG is kind of in the heart of the kind of fantasy sci-fi sort of stuff that I enjoy, and so that is my goal, I think, for that square. I will update you whenever I do end up finding something and what I decide to put in it. And then for pirates, finally, I'm thinking about reading The Red Scholar's Wake by Aliette de Bodard. This follows a space pirates. It's a sapphic sci-fi novel, and we follow our main character Zitzi. I did look up the pronunciation guide, but who is a data analyst, and her ship has been captured by this pirate fleet, and so she has to work with this pirate fleet's leader called Ricefish, who has offered her a proposition of marriage. It seems like on vibes alone the sort of thing I'd be interested in, but this one has really low reviews, so I don't know how it's going to go. Aliette de Bodard, his name has floated around for so long, and there was definitely a couple of books that I have been interested in reading by them, so I'm going to go and just give it a shot anyway. I do actually have one downloaded on Libby right now, but I haven't got around to reading it yet because I've been prioritising other things, and as always. So that is what I'm thinking about reading for pirates. And that brings me to an end of my bingo plans. What I'm thinking about doing is doing a check-in around the halfway point, so that's normally November time, just to see what I have read, if I've read anything, and kind of maybe a push to see if there is anything that I do need to read. A couple of books that I have that I want to try and fit in to the bingo board if I can. Rosewater by Tay Thompson. I've got Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps, which I'm planning on reading for an upcoming video anyway, so I could use that for the bingo board. Masquerade, The Library at Helwall, also Rage of Dragons, which I was going to use last year and then didn't as well. But I'm not too sure at the moment if any of them will fit any of the missing ones that I do have. So I'm going to take a look over the course of the year, just mark things off and see whether they do fit. And that's it. If you are participating, let me know what books you may be thinking of reading. If you have any recommendations for me, I would love to hear them because I can't get enough of book recommendations, clearly. And I'll see you next time.
Hello, Editing Kim here to say I found something for Elves and Dwarfs. Very excitingly, I scoured all the recommendation lists I could find, absolutely nothing. And then I thought, okay, maybe comics or graphic novels would be a better place to find Elves and Dwarfs because maybe it's just more fantastical in there. You maybe see them more slightly. I don't know, but that was just my thought. And so I started scouring lists of a lot of BIPOC authors who've written graphic novels, specifically fantasy graphic novels. And eventually I found a list and it answered my prayers. From the cover, I was like, oh, okay. And then it was on Kindle Unlimited. And so I started looking at it and it has both an elf and a dwarf. So for Elves and Dwarfs now, I'm thinking about reading The Last Session by Jasmine Walls. This is a graphic novel that has a couple of different editions, volumes, and it follows a group of friends who've been playing D&D together since high school, and eventually they're getting together once they're about to graduate to finish out the campaign they never finished, and their DM's new girlfriend is going to be joining them, and that adds obviously a new kind of flavour to the party with a new person in there. So I'm planning on reading that. One of the characters plays an elf, one plays a dwarf, and from reading the first kind of little bit of it, the story is told is them playing the characters. They're playing out the session in the comic. So I'm counting it. I'm not reading anything else. I'm not reading the second Fabian book. You will be glad that I'm not reading it because it would be a hate read because I really did enjoy the first book and I am thankful that I don't have to read it. So sorry to all the Fabian enjoyers out there, but it was not for me. Second, I said that I wasn't going to talk about the Not a Book Square because I was like trying to find a TTRPG maybe that fit into the theme of the card by a BIPOC author. And then I was looking at what I have and I completely forgot that one of the TTRPGs I picked up at Dragon Meet when I went last winter was Harlem Unbound, which is a Call of Cthulhu Chaosium game. And it's specifically set in 1920s Harlem during Prohibition, and it's specifically created by a black creator. And I even had a conversation when I picked up the game. Like I'd been interested in it and interested in buying it for a while, just because I thought it would be like a really unique take on Call of Cthulhu and TTRPGs to have it be kind of a black centric story. And the guy who sold me it was like, yeah, this one was really great because they definitely got people who knew what they were talking about in to create this one. And I was like, he's trying to show me that he's cool and that it's cool to buy this. Anyway, so I have that. It's technically not a solo TTRPG. It is just a general one. And I have googled to see if people have played it alone, and I haven't seen anything yet. So to my friends, if you're watching this, Call of Cthulhu one shot maybe set in Harlem. I don't know. But otherwise, I'm sure I can figure out how to play it solo. So yeah, that brings this video to an end. Enjoy this. Oh, extra. Oh my god. I didn't mean to do that. I forget that I could do that. Bye.